In today's fast-changing world, industries are under pressure to deliver faster, smarter, and learner. I think you have heard about lean and big data before. Lean is all about eliminating waste, optimizing processes, and maximizing value. It is a philosophy that originated in manufacturing but is now transforming hospitals, banks, tech companies, startups, literally every industry. On the other hand, big data is the power to make decisions backed by real, actionable insights using data science, analytics, and smart algorithms. Individually, lean and big data are powerful topics, but together they become unstoppable. That's what makes this combination groundbreaking. It helps organization not just to do things right, but do the right things at the right time with precision. And the best part, you don't have to be a data scientist or a manufacturing engineer to benefit from this. Whether you are in HR, finance, marketing, healthcare, logistic, maybe IT, education, or even entrepreneurship, this knowledge will help you stand out, solve problems faster, and lead smarter. Let me be honest, we live in a time where staying still is falling behind. The tools, technologies, and methodologies around us are evolving rapidly. If we don't keep our skills current, we risk being left behind in a world that doesn't wait.
Lean and big data. Why lean? Beginning of the century, there was a family who were basically into the weaving industry. The name of the family was Toyota, right? They were basically manufacturing fabric, right? So when manufacturing fabric, they were basically using hand looms. Right? So if you have seen a hand loom machine, someone who's weaving through the machine, you may have seen how hectic that job is. So there was a little boy called Toyota. He was worried that his mother is tired after every day with the work. So he wanted to do something different. So he was basically experimenting and looking for new options. And he found out and came up with a concept called the power loom, which was working from steam. So from this journey, they gradually moved toward the ladder. And as you know, sometime after the Japanese got involved in world wars, they were heavily defeated, right? The country was totally bombarded. But people had the courage to still stand up on their own and work. So he thought after some time, the Toyota family, we might need to move to automobile industry. So they visited different areas, different factories. They visited Henry Ford. They visited supermarkets in US. Right. So once they visited Henry Ford, they realized Henry was one of the richest men in the world at that time. Right. He had immense amount of money. So he had the power, he had the strength, he had the muscle power to save immense amount of material in his warehouses and convert them into automobiles. But for Japanese, that was like a dream because they didn't have a huge cash amounts. So whatever the material that comes has to be converted into a car as soon as possible. So they developed a culture which enabled them by reducing something called waste to reduce the lead time. So when you move to this slide, you will understand you have the customer order and you have a shipment. Right? So within this time, you will have a lead time to produce this. So what they were basically focusing on was to understand something called waste. Right? Perhaps you may have heard of this. If you know the word TIMWOODT, transportation, inventory, motion, waiting, overproduction, overprocessing, and defects. So they were basically concentrating on focusing on reducing these elements. So they didn't have the word lean. They never used the word lean. That was the philosophy and the culture of the organization. So gradually, they they started developing this journey. Different industrial engineers joined the company, right? And they started producing cars at a cheaper cost, at a better quality, with a lesser lead time. After some time, they became a giant in the industry. And once they got a collaboration with General Motors, people in USA started visiting Toyota. And then they saw this magical philosophy culture in the Toyota. And they started writing books about it. That's how the lean word came, right? If you have read the book Machine That Changed the World, the Uncoded in the DNA of Toyota, the article written by the Cambridge. So the concept of lean came to the world, but it was practiced in Toyota for some time.
What I'm trying to share with you is how we brought data in to help make decisions. So the first thing we did is we had to identify the need. There were people asking all kinds of things. They were wanting all kinds of things. And when you talk about lean, they wanted uh, some kind of system to support this lean journey. They wanted to build a smart factory. They wanted to make data-driven decisions. And one of the main things they wanted information very, very fast as it happened. Then they wanted information to be accessed from anywhere. Basically, if a factory is working in the central province, they wanted someone traveling in the western province to see this data. They wanted some kind of centralized method to handle this data. So this was what we identified. And once we identified it, we had to identify the gap. So to identify the gap, we knew what the expectation was. Now we also needed to know what was actually there or what we had. So that was our next step, to study what we had. And so we went, and one of the things that we had was manual records. So here again, you'll understand that there is data. A company is not running without data. Obviously, it had data. It had manual records. It had tons of records. And when I say tons, literally tons. In weight itself, there were tons. Um, there was a room full of these files. And when you look at this first picture where I have said manual records, I'm sure you can relate this to your company also. You will have a storeroom full of this kind of files. We are all talking about big data. So what is this big data? What is big about this big data? What are we looking at, right? So just to give you an example or an illustration, Darshana spoke about a pizza. So I thought I will also talk about a pizza. Just imagine if you are a chef. There is a chef who's doing pizzas. He wants to do pizzas. He wants to specialize in pizzas. And so he does all kinds of things. He has different toppings, different sizes, different services. And he's a person who, because he wants to be number one, he journalizes it or he writes it down. Everything is written down. But he realizes after some time that there is a bottleneck or there is a saturation point where he can't go further anymore. And while he's doing this, he realizes or he meets someone who says that there is a set of people who can help him. And so he goes to meet them. Now, when he goes there, he finds that there are another 5 chefs who are doing pizza, right? And they are all journalizing and they are all in the same boat. It's all limited to what they know. So what they say is, they tell this guy, you give your journal, you tell us what you have learned, and we'll tell you what we have. And together we'll go forward. Now, as soon as it's told, natural point is to take a step back. Why should I give my data to someone else? There can be security issues. Someone else can take my idea and sell it. So I lose out. Now, these are questions that chef could have. But once, if he weighs pros and cons, if he looks at his benefits, then he can step in and use the data. And if he actually starts using the data, yes, he's sharing his data, but he would have data from 5 other people. He would have help from 5 other chefs who are doing the same thing. So they will talk about their failure points, which you may not even have thought of. They may talk about their toppings that you have not thought about. They may talk about different combination, different sizes, different selling points or different seasons. Now, these are things that you can then suddenly your knowledge expands. And it's not just like a frog in the well, but now you suddenly see that there is a lot more that you can do to improve, right? So big data is something like that. Big data is where you use your data plus data of others. And that's what it is, right? There is so much of data, and this is all on cloud. So now we are talking about internet. And so there is so much of data that goes to and fro from the cloud, right? A case study. And I think Darshana used this case study called Walmart. We all know Walmart. Walmart is a company that has stores, and these stores are all over the world in different countries. But one of the things this Walmart says or boast is that they are never out of stock, or their shelves are never out of stock. And when a person goes, for example, I go to a Walmart store, I will get what I want. Now, how do they do that? How they do that is basically they use big data. They use data from other countries, and they look at different buying patterns. Then they look at different weather, different seasons. It may be winter, it may be summer, it may be autumn, whichever season. It looks at a geographical location, and then it decides what kind of things people will like to buy. And then it will tell you what to store in which branch. And this is how Walmart works. So because of that, they say they talk about supply chain. There is uh, just in time. This is another thing that was spoken by Darshana. Just in time is where when the stock is going below reorder level, um, the seller, the supplier is alerted, and he will come and uh, issue the goods to the store. So Walmart always has this stock all the time. Then let's look at IBM, another famous brand or a company. IBM has different companies around the world. They look at human resource management. They look at their people, their country. They take, for example, their retirement, uh, who's going to retire. And then they will look at other countries. They will look at all the data across the world, and they will look at human behavior and why people would leave the company. There could be riots, there could be bad management, there could be different things why people may leave or people may want to wait this company. It may be a good bonus scheme. These are things that they need to know. And how they know is by studying data, not only their data, but studying data around the world. And this is all big data. Now I'll come closer home. Netflix. I'm sure all of you have Netflix, right? You'll use Netflix. If you go to look at Netflix and if you go to the search button, it doesn't give you hundreds and hundreds of movies. It will not do that. What it will do is it will pop up movies that you like to watch. And that is what happens. How does that happen? It happens because you have a login, and it has stored all your the movies you have searched. And so it will now know, it will make a combination of all these movies. It will look at what type of a movie it is. It will know what the trend is. And so it will then show you those movies that you like to see. Now, interestingly, even if you don't search into Netflix, if you are a person who has gone and searched Google, for example, for a movie, Netflix will know it because you're using that login. And if you're using that login, then it will also consider your phone, the movie that you watched on your phone. It will consider the movie that you searched on Google, and it will tell you what you like. And so it saves you a lot of time. The customer experience is very high on Netflix because when you go, it'll tell you what you want and it'll help you to search what you want. So you end up being a happy customer. Right. One more. ChatGPT. This is also why I pulled this out, is because uh, we we are people who love this, and this is catching on. Everyone's using ChatGPT. When we want a letter, we just say, "Okay, I want a letter. This is what I want. Here is, this is my search criteria. All that." And ChatGPT will throw it out to you. And how does this happen? When you want a letter, you say what kind of a letter and just give the points. It will then search the entire internet. It's called scraping the net. It'll search the net and it will then pull the best letter possible with those words that you have given, and it will give you a good letter. Now that's for customer experience. Now that is just not for letter writing, but for research. Chat GPT can be used for research. You can go and type anything there and ask what it is, and it will tell you what it is. So you can go in, even in Lean, you can tell them, okay, give me a list of big companies that have been successful in Lean, and it'll tell you. And then you can drill down and you can ask them, okay, how did it happen? And it'll tell you. And this is customer experience.
As we have come to the end of the session, let me introduce who we are, PMSS Advanced Manufacturing Academy. At PMSS, we are committed to bringing your industry-relevant, globally recognized programs that help you stand out and move forward. We are a dynamic group of experienced professionals, educators, and industry leaders committed to shaping the next generation of manufacturing excellence.